everyone, welcome and thanks a lot for joining the webinar. Today we will be discussing the relationship between digital innovation and IT security. IT security is often neglected or put at the back of the agenda in digital innovation. And taking security into account, especially in hybrid SAP landscapes and in cases of digital transformation, can be difficult. But actually, it's not impossible at all to accelerate digital innovation and business transformation while taking SAP security to the next level. Here is our agenda for today. First, we will start off by discussing security challenges in hybrid SAP systems and how traditional SAP security monitoring is not enough. We will also go through a real-life customer case in digital transformation and security, which is quite common to many organizations. Then we will talk about how to remove the SAP blind spot in IT security, which means that how you can elevate your SAP security and have visibility into everything that's going on in the system. And at the end, we will have a Q&A, so remember to post any questions in the chat that you would like us to answer. And before we jump into it, I just want to let you know that this webinar will be recorded and sent to all participants, so you can return to watch it later. And before I hand over to my colleagues, I just want to introduce the team here with me today. First of all, my name is Ira. I'm a product marketing manager here at Logpoint. And today with me as speakers, we have Tim, regional director based in the UK, and Brian, enterprise sales manager based in the US. And as I mentioned earlier, in the end, we will be answering some questions. So our SAP security expert, Christoph, will join there as a panelist for the Q&A. And instead of us just having a monologue, we want you to participate. So we will be posting some questions during the webinar, and you will have a bit of time to vote for the option that applies to your situation or you think is correct. So just to kick it off, can we have the first question? Thanks. So the first question is about securing your SAP system. You should all see it on your screen. Does your organization use a third-party software to secure the SAP system? And the options are yes, no, you don't know, or your organization is not using SAP. And while you have some more time to vote, I will just hand over to my colleague, Tim, who will then go through the results.
Fantastic. I can see the votes are still rolling in. There's a few of you still left to vote. So we'll give it sort of 10 more seconds, 15 more seconds to get that done. And then we'll share the results with everybody. As Ira said, yes, Tim Wallen, regional director based here in the UK. I run many of the commercial teams around the globe. And really looking forward to discussing this hot topic with you here today. So I think we can get the poll closed. It looks like most people have voted. And really, really interesting, right? So 42% don't know if they're using any third-party software, 17% no, 17% yes, and 25% of you are not using SAP at all. So I guess that there might be a plan to use it in the future, or at least an interest in the subject matter. So what's really interesting there is over half said that they didn't know, or there was nothing at all. And that's pretty typical, to be honest with you. So I guess we're in the right place to discuss this topic. IT security is often neglected in innovation or modernization projects, or as Ira said, put to the back of the agenda. We fall into the same traps trying to bolt on security controls kind of after the fact, after the project's been complete. Maybe it's not considered essential, or security teams are not involved in the planning phases. But the fact remains that the higher the value and more sensitive the data, the more these security controls are needed, both from a controls level, but also at the business level, because the impact of failure can be super high. The cost of service outage can cause by financial and reputational damage, which may in turn be linked to compliance issues, poor audit results, and eventually panic measures being put in place. For example, GDPR is a key concern for all organizations these days in Europe. Currently, the fines have risen to 4% of turnover, not profit, turnover, global turnover. And I saw today that the NIS2 controls, if that applies to you, are 2% of global turnover. So further corporate damage, both to brand and finances, with the loss of manipulation or intellectual property, can further hinder your competitive advantage. The cost of prevention is always less than the cost of cleanup. The issue is that many see it as an overhead or an insurance policy rather than just good business practice. And now I believe we have the second of our polls for you. Is that right? Can we put that up? So, how many SAP systems have been breached in the past 24 months? The options are 35, 65, or 85% of SAP systems. Okay, fairly even so far. Moving around, got about 10 voters so far. Any last stragglers wish to weigh in on this hot topic? Excellent. So we've got 12 votes in now. So we will start to close the poll in a few more seconds. That's a good response rate. Okay, let's close the poll. So just under half of you were absolutely correct. The result is actually 65% of SAP systems were breached in the last 24 months. Very high. And that's ranging from unknown actors discovered on the SAP systems, perhaps looking for data or privilege escalation, to insider threats, removing data, perhaps into personal storage ready for use later. It could be, the common breach with service outages related to the breach itself. Now, everyone is concerned with breach, but from a certain point of view, I guess from the CISO point of view, that's the easy part. We kind of hopefully know what happened post-breach, and we can set about fixing it and making sure it never, ever happens again. People have a confidence around that. You can tell the board that it's been fixed, and everyone gets a pat on the back. That's if we get to keep our jobs, I guess. But the real worry is what's happening right now, the stuff we don't know about. How do we track and control that? But here's the amazing thing about securing SAP. It's all of the same challenges that are super well documented in securing the rest of our business, applied just to this unique ecosystem. It's easy to assume applications are secure by design, particularly from big corporations, but that could not be further from the truth. At SAP have a very complex set of applications and interoperability. That means there is a large attack surface for the bad actors with potentially very high financial returns. And likely there's a poor set of controls in place. Over 50% of you said you didn't know what your controls were or didn't have any, right, for instance. So in terms of digital transformation, many will be moving to SAP in the cloud or hybridized environments. And the research showed that an unpatched SAP application can be exploited in less than 3 hours in the cloud. So security must be included in the planning phases. 3 hours is not enough time to respond. So we have a bit of a customer use case, and my colleague will build this out as we talk. So a real life Logpoint customer. The customer is undergoing a process of digital and business transformation in a pretty fast moving industry. The security teams were helping to address the security challenges. The outcome of that was increased IT and SAP security demands all along the process chain, just to meet the compliance and security standards. Together with digital innovation and business transformation process, the IT infrastructure was completely reorganized. They moved their SAP systems from on-premise to a hyperscaler or cloud environment. They discussed all of those requirements with their cloud providers and their outsourcers to make sure they had the right set of controls in place. Unfortunately, that ended up with an internal requirement to regain control and get transparency back on the outsourced systems themselves. It's really hard to give away the responsibility. In fact, from a legislative perspective, you cannot give away the responsibility of security on platforms to service providers. They do not adequately know the inner workings of your company and certainly not your supply chain. A particular issue with this customer was the aspect of GDPR in relation to the security of the applications and how the data was being handled and stored physically. They didn't have the answers to the questions that our Swedish company was legally bound to comply with for the GDPR standard. You know, where's my data? How's it being accessed? Is it encrypted in transit? Do we have forensic controls around it? You know, all of those things are very, very important. And now that I've hopefully adequately framed your thinking for the next part of the discussion, I'll hand over to Brian to discuss how Logpoint helps our customers overcome these digital transformation and security challenges in a little bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. So one thing that's really important to remember when we're talking about SAP and securing these applications is, more often than not, when an organization is running SAP, it's the most important application to their business. It's responsible for critical trade secrets. It's the backbone of the supply chain. It holds financial data. Yet, despite that, we find it's often not included in traditional incident response programs, primarily due to the complexity of its configuration. It leads to it sitting on an island or a silo within a group managed by a separate IT team, with the cyber team and the SOC having limited insight or visibility into the risks within that environment. What Logpoint Business Critical Security is doing is allowing organizations to extract and make sense of the data from these SAP systems. Tim really hit the nail on the head earlier when he said, we're not talking about anything different than what you're already doing in other aspects of your environment. We're talking about taking those practices and applying it specifically to the most important applications in your business. One of the challenges that exists is the lack of integration and solutions to really interpret those SAP logs and make them understandable to the individuals in the SOC. That, combined with different views and areas of expertise between the SAP team and the cyber team, makes it very hard to understand risk. You know, the SAP team is primarily focused on uptime and availability, where the cyber team is focused on mitigating risk and understanding threats. Without the ability to understand what's happening and have the insight into the logs of these SAP systems, it makes things like insider threats and advanced attacks extremely difficult to identify, given the out-of-the-box security capabilities of these SAP solutions. By onboarding business-critical data into the SIM, you're able to have a more holistic view around the security and posture of these SAP applications. With Logpoint Business Critical Solutions, we have 4 different modules that I'll jump into in more detail in a minute. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're equipping you with ready and out of the box checks, which provide a strong foundation on where to start from an alerting and a monitoring perspective, enabling your organization to increase transparency and receive greater context around the events taking place within SAP applications. You know, at a high level, standard SIM tools lack the ability to interpret SAP logs and SAP specific events. Without these capabilities, it's nearly impossible for the security teams to identify threats within SAP systems, in turn, making the most critical asset a blind spot. With Logpoint Security and Compliance, we're able to integrate SAP data into a centralized SIM solution, which is going to strengthen your threat detection capabilities by enabling event correlation and tying into the SOC and incident response programs. With Logpoint Business Integrity Monitoring, we're aiming to reduce and eliminate fraudulent activities by monitoring and detecting for flaws and potential outliers from standards in your business processes. You know, most SAP systems hold all kinds of personal data, employee address and salary, customer data, contracts, financial information. With PII access monitoring, we're able to help solve the challenges customers face specific to logging, log retention, and analysis capabilities being limited within these SAP systems. And lastly, the IT Service Intelligence module helps organizations identify potential problems within SAP operations before they have the ability to impact your business. We do this by correlating SAP data with infrastructure data. We provide visibility into the operational capabilities, allowing you to monitor for availability and stability in your SAP applications, which is essential for ensuring smooth operation, avoiding downtime and costly outages. Now, the first thing to remember when we talk about the Logpoint security and compliance module is a few key value propositions. The first is we're working to elevate your SAP security posture by giving you data which is easy to navigate and act upon, which in turn saves time by automating a lot of tedious manual tasks that you would typically have to go through. By onboarding these logs into the SIM, we give security monitoring and full threat visibility across your entire landscape. By correlating the SAP data with other event data in your network, providing security insight across your entire infrastructure, in turn, strengthening your threat detection and incident response capabilities. Our dashboards deliver a landscape-wide overview of events that could potentially compromise your SAP systems, and our predefined use case, filtering options, and search templates make it easier to identify critical events and prioritize action, which ultimately is going to give you the ability to investigate root causes of potential malicious activity, being able to drill down into more specific event data while getting recommendations on next steps to be taken. These ready-to-use checks are going to automate a lot of the manual tasks that your security team is attempting to go through today on a day-to-day basis. With the Logpoint Business Integrity Monitoring module, we're aiming to minimize fraud. One of the bigger challenges that organizations are faced with when it comes to securing SAP systems is their complexity. It's not easy to monitor due to the fact that so many transactions are taking place on a day-to-day basis. It's unrealistic to expect your team to manually monitor for potential fraudulent activities. So what we're doing here is we're focusing and analyzing business data and processes around things like segregation of duties to build specific use cases for SAP business processes, which are going to make it easier to monitor and spot things like potential deviations from the norm. So really what we're doing here is instead of analyzing SAP log data, we're looking at the business data and spotting potential deviations. For example, an individual tries to create an order or a one-time order from multiple different vendors all in one act, or an individual tries to create a vendor and issue a PO within a specific time frame. These are a few of the use cases that are hard to spot manually given the solutions that you have. So these out-of-the-box use cases specific to fraud scenarios make it a lot easier to act quickly given the intelligence that you now have. And the implementation of this module requires very low efforts, and the predefined use cases make it ready to use and eliminate the need to spend time and resources around manual configuration for these use cases. One of the challenges customers face when it comes to monitoring access data within SAP is that the log retention capabilities are very limited with the out-of-the-box capabilities. It requires a lot of manual configuration to get log sources and to produce logs that are digestible and easy to understand. What we're providing here is continuous extraction of logs with automated monitoring and detection of access. So we provide a configuration of the SAP read access log, which is going to relieve your team from the manual efforts that go into configuring, maintaining, and enabling SAP systems to produce logs that are easily digestible. This is another solution that's very easy to implement. It can be implemented via a transport management system. And instead of having to monitor access on a system-by-system basis, what we're doing is enabling all that monitoring to take place in one environment, centralizing the monitoring of relevant logs that could potentially point to unauthorized access. And the reporting capabilities here make it very easy to generate and share reports in a variety of different formats across departments, which in turn is going to help bridge the gap between the business and IT. And lastly, the solution we're going to talk about here is the IT Service Intelligence module, which is focused on collecting and analyzing data across applications to help understand the operational capabilities. So this is full stack monitoring that's going to give you and your team the ability to effectively identify and respond to issues before they could threaten the stability of your SAP systems. We give you pre-configured KPIs and dashboards focused around things like CPU, memory, response time. We enable you to monitor for what matters most in regards to the health of your most critical applications. We give you the ability to predict trends based on historical data and configure alerts based off early warning signs of previous system outages. This is going to be most relevant to individuals who are, hands-on with the SAP system on a day-to-day basis. Anyone who's on the SAP system admin, the basis team, or works in the center of excellence. It can be extremely valuable for anyone whose job is focused on configuring, monitoring, tuning, or troubleshooting of SAP applications, because as the concern over the impact of a potential outage grows, it's becoming more and more critical to take measures to ensure you're automating the processes behind detecting system failures or outages. And the ability to have a centralized location to monitor for things like CPU usage, availability, runtime errors. You can work to optimize your system resources and make predictions on trends moving forward to avoid any potential costly outages. So in closing, before I pass it back over to Tim, I'll leave you with a few things. Due to the importance of the application itself, SAP should no longer sit on an island. It's important to look at where is your business invested from an application perspective, and then look at where is your business invested in protecting your most critical assets. And I think when you take a step back, you'll see security teams are investing a lot of money, but not any of that is focused specifically on the most critical application to the business. Logpoint can work with you to support you on your digital journey throughout your business transformation by helping to include SAP in a cybersecurity platform. In turn, we can enable your org to coordinate with the people, processes, and technology necessary to dissolve the IT silo that SAP is typically sitting on. We'll help to accelerate business transformation, providing efficient solutions for the monitoring of your SAP applications. And then, once SAP is fully on board, it's time to start looking at things like SaaS solutions and other SAP and mission critical applications, which Logpoint is currently in the process and has on our roadmap and is working with customers today to do so.
Thank you, Brian. Excellent. So you might be sat there thinking, this is for me, this is exactly what we need. I need my organization to take a look at this. How do we get started? So existing customers, feel free to reach out to your customer success teams or maybe your account manager. If you're new somewhat to Logpoint, then please visit the website. The link's there. There's a contact page, or you can visit some of the collateral and link through and request demos or whatever you need to do. So through the website's the easiest way, and it will route to the right geographical team. You can always reach out to us as individuals as well, but that way is a lot cleaner. I can see that a few of you have been very keen and posted a couple of questions in the Q&A tool already. I'll give you a few seconds, everybody else, to put anything in there that you really, really want to know. And then I'm going to invite Brian back and Christoph as a subject matter expert onto the panel with me to field any questions you might have. Welcome back, gents. And we were on camera, so that's good. Right, so the first couple of questions, I think this one's probably for you, Christoph. Our organization is currently moving SAP systems from on-premise to hyperscaler environments. I can see why they're on the call. Is this a supported product?
Yes, our solution supports hybrid environments, so not just on-prem, but also hyperscaler environments. So when customers move from on-premise to these, as we've also seen in the one customer case, as you've also mentioned before, right? The experience of our customers going that way is in a way they find out basically that they cannot just rely the topic or leave the topic security to the hyperscaler platform as a service provider. They need to regain the transparency especially on SAP, and it's more a regain of the control also on the SAP systems themselves in terms of security and monitoring, as they have probably done before on-prem, or if not yet to that extent, of course, then start with our solution on this entire monitoring, also in hyperscaler environments.
Brilliant. And I guess as an extension of that, we'll keep you on while we've got you. The monitoring of SAP SaaS solutions, is that already available on our roadmap? And I guess they're talking about the extended ecosystem there. Yeah, so the SaaS solutions of SAP, there is SuccessFactors being the new HR product, and then there is a product called Ariba for procurement, and Concur for the expense management. We are at the stage right now, we are in a collaboration project with a customer to onboard SuccessFactors to the entire monitoring. There will be kind of a ready to use product-like approach by the end of the year, or just by very early in January. So we are on a good track with that. SuccessFactors comes first. Next will be Ariba, and after that, Concur. Fantastic. Sounds like a great roadmap. So the answer is, just because we don't have it today doesn't mean we won't have it very shortly. Yes. Excellent. We'll have it shortly. So we've got a full portfolio there. So we've got, I can see what, I think we've covered most of the questions off within the answers to those two, but there's one that stands out. In your opinion, who is best placed to own the security of SAP in an organization? Right, okay, so I'll take that one. It's, in short, everyone. It's your company crown jewels, your IPs in there. Absolutely everything about your company can be derived from your SAP system. In practice, a hybrid ownership between the SAP team, certainly the basis owner needs to be there, and the security operations team probably have the right mix of expertise to cover all those kind of angles in terms of, you know, what's the right best practice from a security perspective with the subject matter expertise of SAP itself. And I think, I guess the, you know, kind of security would probably run the tooling, where, you know, the SAP guys would probably be the business owners, and derive the benefit and potentially some of the actions from the business perspective. So yeah, answer is everybody, but practically there'll be a balance between those kind of two departments within each organization, depending on, you know, what you're doing and how you're doing it, and your risk matrix. I hope that answers that. Just going to go back into the chat just to make sure there's nothing there, nothing in the chat at the moment. So I think, unless anyone's got a last question for us, we've come to the end of our session here, and I will let Ira close us out.
Yeah, so thank you everyone so much for joining. And as I mentioned before, this session was recorded, so you will also receive it within the next couple of days, the recording, so you can watch it again or send it to your colleagues who missed it. Yes, so thanks everyone for joining, and have a great day.